You are listening to Let's Talk Trio on podcasts. Keep up with the latest episodes by downloading the Podbean app or stream episodes via our social media accounts. Search for Let's Talk Trio on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. This episode is sponsored by Student Access. Student Access, the leader in Trio software. Student Access is an online database solution that allows Trio programs to track their students' information, connect with students by text messages, streamline the APR, and work from anywhere, all online, with automatic updates for changes from the Department of Education. Their technical support team includes former Trio staff and has over 50 years of combined experience working with Trio. Make it easier to focus on your priority, the students. For more information and to request a free demo, visit their website at www.studentaccess.com or call them toll-free at 1-800-801-1232. That website again is www.studentaccess.com or 1-800-801-1232. Be sure to share your favorite episodes on your social media by tapping that share button. This is a great way to support the podcast. Now here's your host, Juan Rivas.
Thank you, Amelia, for that wonderful introduction. Hello, listener, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Trio. This is Season 6, Episode 13. I am your host, Juan Rivas. In today's episode, we have Emmanuel Lopez, who is the director of the Latinx Resource Center and vice chair of ACE. Emmanuel is on the podcast to talk about his educational experience, his upbringing, and guiding first-generation students. So coming up in just a bit, Emmanuel Lopez. A huge thanks to our sponsors, Angelica Villalpando, Rosario O'Reilly, Dr. Ryan Barone, Dr. Jamie Motley, Dr. Jeff Naputi, Angelica Valdez, Felicia Rivera, Jaded Electronics, TrioJoblist.com, NOSOTROS Education Center, and Student Access. Thank you all so much for your continued support of this podcast. You too can be a sponsor of the podcast. Head on over to Patreon and search for Let's Talk Trio. Choose one of 4 patron levels. You can support this podcast for as little as $1 a month. $1 a month goes a long way in supporting this podcast. If you own a business and would like to run an ad on the podcast, send us a message at letstalktrio@gmail.com. Become a supporter with a one-time donation to the podcast PayPal account. Our business handle is at Let's Talk Trio. Any amount is truly appreciated. If you would like to nominate a participant, staff, alumni, or advocate to be on the podcast, send us an email at letstalktrio@gmail.com. That email again is letstalktrio@gmail.com. Again, a great episode featuring Emmanuel Lopez, who is the director of the Latinx Center at Governor State University. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hi, Trio Nation. My guest on the Let's Talk Trio podcast currently serves Governor State University as the director for the Latinx Resource Center. He graduated from the Indiana University Northwest with a bachelor's in communication and obtained his master's in higher education leadership from Northeastern Illinois University. In his free time, my guest enjoys being involved with various nonprofit organizations in the Chicagoland area. Welcome to the podcast, Emmanuel Lopez. Emmanuel, welcome to the podcast.
I'm so happy to be here, Juan. This is one of those things that I circled on my calendar that get me really excited and happy. I love higher ed. I love the work that I do, and I appreciate folks who do consistent work like you're doing right now. And it's an honor to be here.
It's an honor on this end for you to be here. We've been trying to get you because we know you have a super busy schedule. You're doing a lot of great things, but we appreciate your time. So thank you so much for being here, agreeing to be interviewed. And again, this interview has been a long time coming.
Yeah, sometimes that's how things work out, though, right? Sometimes it takes a while. But I'm glad neither of us gave up. That's the important piece.
Absolutely. Persistence is key. Emmanuel, how are things in Chicago?
They're getting better, man. The days are starting to feel a little bit longer. We're starting to get more sunlight, over here. and like many other parts of the country, getting out at 5 and it being pitch black, it does mess with you a little bit on the mental side. So I'm glad that we're now kind of peaking spring and are starting, the days feel longer and the sun, you still feel a little bit of the sun warmth, but we still got a long way to go. But it's good.
Approaching the spring, and absolutely, I'm right there with you. Looking forward to the days of spring and summer. So, Emmanuel, I've only been in Chicago one time, and that was through an educational tour with the Trio Upward Bound program a long, long time ago. It is such a wonderful city.
I agree. I think, one of the largest cities in the United States too, right? I know you interview a bunch of people from a lot of different states. It wasn't until maybe a few, when I was in high school that I realized, like, wow, my parents chose a great city to raise a family, right? There's so many opportunities here. There's so many school options. So I truly, we could have been anywhere else and perhaps would have made it work out too, but there's just so many opportunities here, especially when you're pursuing higher ed. I mean, the opportunities are endless.
Absolutely. For those unfamiliar with the Chicago area, can you give us some highlights of what it's like to live there?
Yeah, and just so it's clear, because I'm not one of those who say I live in Chicago and then live in the suburbs. To be fair, I live in the suburbs, right? Chicago is the closest large city to me, and when I mean close, 30 minutes, I'm there on the highway.
Still there.
5 minutes, yeah, for sure. But just so it's clear, but I've been around this area my entire life. So to be, for those who are not familiar with Chicago, super diverse. Right now, as many other parts of the country, we have a large school systems like City Colleges of Chicago, which is one of the largest community college systems in the nation. A lot of innovation, just like on the West Coast where you see a lot of like tech. We're starting to get that here in Chicago because granted, we're in the middle of the country, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, a lot of corporations are building their headquarters central, right? And Chicago happens to be right splat middle in the country. So I think it's going to continue to evolve. Everything changes and so will Chicago, but it's a beautiful city.
Absolutely. During the intro, I shared with the audience that you enjoy being involved with several nonprofits. How did you develop that interest, and how does it continue to affect your life today?
Wow. For those who are listening, right, who are thinking about ways to get a competitive advantage, luckily I was very fortunate to have great mentors who also were, I've noticed they were really busy, really good at what they did in higher ed. But yet they were still involved. And I'm like, wait a minute, these people know something, right? The fact that they're doing their job, they're super busy. I know they are, yet they're still volunteering at a nonprofit. And I was like, there has to be something here. And I remember asking questions. I mean, like, why? You already have a full-time, you have a family. Why is it that you still dedicate even more time volunteering for free?
Yeah, right.
For free. But I'm very happy to be at a point now where I've dedicated, perhaps the last 6 years of my life a different involvement at different various nonprofit organizations, as interns, as also on the Chicago Walks board for certain ones, on a leadership team, just because I love it. I think that for me, it keeps me sharp. I think when you're so invested in your work, that's fine. But then, like, how are you building your network outside of work? And to me, being involved with the nonprofit sectors, not only am I building my network at work, which is important, but in the case I ever want to transition, these folks that I'm building on the nonprofit side who also work in various different industries, I'm building that relationship there too. And they know about me and my work. And this game is all about who you know, right? I think there's a quote that says, not what you know, is who you know.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's about both, right? If you could merge those two, it's what you know with who you know. I think that's where you truly get to the next level, and you start to really make some giant professional leaps, which I've been very blessed to be in that position as someone who's involved with various stuff. And honestly, the question that I get all the time is, Emmanuel, what about work-life balance? And to be completely honest with you, Juan, I want to be super clear. For the last few years, I don't know if I've had work-life balance. But right now I'm at the point where I'm like, I know these are the years that I have to invest, even if it's at the cost of some work-life balance, because I want to get ahead in the game. Like, I have a vision of where I want to be. My ambition is very high. That doesn't have to be the case for everyone, right?
Right.
But for me, I just know that that's the investment I'm willing to make now in my 20s, because I know in my 40s, 50s, like I'm gonna be good with relationships, opportunities, etc.
Absolutely. Wonderful to hear. So we are recording this episode in February. At this point, millions of Americans have either developed a new habit or they've given up on their New Year's resolution. Did you create a list of New Year's resolutions for 2024?
Oh man, I feel like I have the same ones every year.
Really?
To be honest with you, I think this is the first time in my career that I feel like I have to say no to some things.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Before people are like, oh, you have to learn to say no, and I'm like, no, like I'm benefiting so much from saying yes,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But to be fair, I'm involved with a bunch of stuff. And just to give context to people, there's the United States Hispanic Leadership Institute. They host one of the largest conferences in the Chicagoland area. That's happening in this upcoming week. And we have like 2,100 high school students, around 1,500 college level students. So this is a large conference. I've been on their leadership team now for quite a few years now, but that's one of them. I'm the vice chair for the Chicago Auxiliary Board for the Hispanic Alliance for Career Enhancement, which focus more on the career side and getting people Latinx talent to C-level suites to
Hmm.
that executive level. Ilache, I mean Haku. I served on the advisory council for Haku when they were here
Wow.
just last year. But I love it. I think for the longest time, I just loved the work that I was doing because it also aligned with my professional work at Governor State University. And I really appreciated learning to build those relationships and getting better at that. I think, and I don't know if we have a question here, but the oftentimes I hear from first generation professionals is how do I get a mentor, right? And
Mm, yeah.
how do I
Yeah.
continue to get mentors? But the question is, are you a good mentee? Do you know what it means to be a good mentee, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
before you want to get the best mentor you possibly can, learn what does it mean to be a mentee.
Hmm.
What are some things you could bring to the table? If you develop that craft, those really bomb mentors
Hmm.
are when they come across from you, you're going to be able to get them, and they're going to want to help you because they're also super busy. The last thing they want to do is try to mentor someone who also doesn't know the value of the role that they should be playing as a mentee as well.
Absolutely. That's a great statement. What is something that you learned about yourself in 2023?
In 2023, I think oh, I got a good one for you. So in 2023, that last year had to be the greatest year of my professional life up to this point. I had gotten an assistant director position,
Hmm.
and I was in that role for around 6 months. I was very happy. I was just a recruiter at Governor State University for about a year and a half. Here I am now, within a year and a half. Now I'm an assistant director. Things are going great, Juan. I'm like happy. I'm like, this is where I need to be. This makes sense. I got the role that I wanted. I'm working with a team that I love to work with. I'm happy. I'm doing work that I'm passionate about. And then comes my dream job, the one that I have now. So here I
Oh,
am, right?
wow.
I just
Yeah.
got promoted, and here comes the inaugural director of the Latinx Resource Center. And in my mind, I'm like, do I stay humble and grateful the fact that I just got promoted? And matter of fact, they've created this position for me. So the
Hmm.
assistant director position did not exist before Juan.
Hmm.
They created it for me, and I got the role because it was for me.
Yeah.
And now here comes another opportunity. So here I am in almost like a life crisis, saying, do I go for it, right?
Hmm.
And
Right.
kind of let these people know, like, hey, although you create this position for me, this is my dream job,
Yeah.
right? At least up to this
Yeah.
point. And I decided in my head, and I was very honest with my employer at the time who hired me. I'm like, I have to try. I
Hmm.
have to try because if I don't try at all,
Hmm.
I'm not gonna be able to live with the fact that I said like, well, I don't know what could have turned out. Or if I saw who got the director position, I'm like, you know what? Dang it, I should have applied. Maybe I could have
Hmm.
competed with that person. Maybe not get it, right? Because at
Hmm.
the end, you are competing with some high level professionals, but maybe I would like to at least compete it because I could have
Right.
learned a thing or two. And I did it. I applied. I got the position. But one thing that I learned about
Congratulations.
thank you. The one thing that I learned is continue to bet on yourself, right? And it's okay if you think that you're not ready, if you think that you don't have the skill set, if you think, oh, I never was a director before. How do I have the audacity as someone who just became an assistant
Hmm.
director, go for a director position? But
Hmm.
I believe in myself. I believe that leadership is not positional, but it's
Hmm.
personal. And I've always believed that I'm a leader at heart, and I believe in serving others. So that's what I learned.
That's wonderful. To stay on this point a little bit, I think a lot of first generation students, even going into as first generation professionals, we try to discount ourselves from a lot of opportunities because we're like, oh, I might not qualify, or I just like you were saying, I just got this position. I want to be humble and just say be grateful for the things I got. So, uh, I guess what is something that you could say to the audience that are first generation professionals that are listening about giving themselves a shot?
Yeah, I think the don't count yourself out, right? Don't be the person who counts your own self out, right? Let the other person say no or that company say no, right? But I think
Hmm.
too many of us, to your point, are saying are overvaluing the competition and undervaluing themselves, right?
That is such a
And remember,
fantastic point.
you don't have to be the best candidate for that role. You just have to be the best candidate in the pool who is applying
Hmm.
for that role, right? Because in my head, I was thinking about, oh, what would be the dream director for this role? And I'm like, someone who has all these skill sets. But I'm like, remember, that person might not apply. The person who's going to get hired is the person who's in the pool, and you
Hmm.
could have to be the strongest applicant in that pool, right? Not this imaginary thing of what you think that director should look like. Because then in that reality, well, then maybe you don't. Yeah, maybe that person's going to beat you, but you're not competing with that ideal candidate. You're competing with whoever applied. And I
Right.
think that's something that what I would like to tell people is that you don't have to be the absolute ideal candidate, just the strongest pool candidate in the pool that applied for that position.
Absolutely. Very good. Very good. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor.
Are you seeking guidance to enhance your TRIO project's effectiveness and success? Look no further. Nosotros Education Center, NEC, is here to empower your TRIO project with expert consulting services. NEC's mission is to promote the effectiveness and impact of TRIO programs. Since 2003, NEC has specialized in providing professional development and in-service staff trainings, allowable cost services, for TRIO projects across the country. The team at NEC, with over 60 years of combined TRIO experience, offers customized workshops and seminars for project staff, compliance assessments, external evaluations, working on and submitting APRs, database customization and training, development of policies and procedures manuals, and project implementation or reorganization services. Additionally, NEC has secured over $774 million in federal funding with a 92% success rate through their live and on-demand proposal workshops, assistance with data collection and review, detailed technical reviews, and comprehensive proposal development services. Join the hundreds of colleges, agencies, and TRIO projects across the country who benefited from NEC's expertise. Nosotros Education Center, your partner in TRIO's project success. Visit their website at nosotros.edu.org. Again, that's nosotros.edu.org.
And now back to the podcast. So let's rewind the clock a little bit, Emmanuel. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and talk about your childhood?
Yes, so I'm the eldest of four boys. So I have
Oh,
three younger
wow.
brothers.
Yeah.
I was born. My parents obviously migrated to the United States, figuring it out, working various jobs.
Hmm.
Grew up in the not the nicest areas, right? Not the nicest neighborhoods. A lot of violence, a lot of gang activity. Um, I think what my parents did really, really, really well is that for one, they're really strict. So my
Mm.
parents were really, really strict. But at the same time, as much as I hated that, I look back and I'm like, thank goodness, thank God that was the case because they were very strict and they were really strict on us. They were really hard on us academically.
Hmm.
So they were like, hey, C's are not acceptable. You got to get the highest grade. And I think my dad was a reinforcer, right? As many of our Latino males are, they're the reinforcer. So we feared our dad a little bit. But my mom was the one who, when we performed academically well, would overreact. So I would come home with an A or a sticker or something. She'd be like, wow, that's so great. Like she would really make it feel like I really felt seen when that would happen. So
Hmm.
eventually you just became accustomed to just performing really well academically because your mom would reinforce this behavior. To the point that when she stopped doing that because, high school, whatever, I just continued doing that because it felt good to me. I'm like, I'm making
Hmm.
myself proud, right? Because I know that deep down my mom really valued this, and I just wanted. I think everyone, every child that who's raised by parents who they see are working all the time, who care about them, that child wants to make their parents proud, right? I think at the
Right.
core, that child wants to make their parents proud. And one way that I knew I could do that is to perform well academically. And me and my younger brothers although we not all of us pursued higher education, education is still a huge part. Everyone's benefiting because they are still in with learning. They're still learning something, whether it's higher education or not.
Absolutely. So, can you give us a little bit of a feeling of like how was it growing up with your brothers, growing up with your mom and your dad? What was that like, the family dynamic like?
Yeah, very traditional, right? My dad worked, my mom stayed at home. Eventually she just started working, but didn't really see my dad. He worked super early, came home in the afternoons and super tired. Um, they instilled work ethic into us. My dad, he would go to like the Swamporama and resell stuff on the weekends. My mom would try to help with whatever she possibly could. My younger brothers, I mean, four boys. So obviously, we're not that far in age. The next oldest is 1 year apart from me, and then the next two are, I think, 2 to 3 years away. So we're not that far off. So I'm super competitive, right? We would always play soccer or something. And there was us four. We were always around the same, playing soccer and being super competitive, especially with grades too. That competition there was extremely important, but I think it ultimately made everyone. We all benefited from each other because each one of us we wanted to up the other person, so we kind of set the bar high.
Absolutely. How would your family describe you?
As someone who cares for others at the expense of themselves, I feel like
Mm,
I think my mom would say that I'm someone who is always looking to bless others or help others or think about others in other ways and make sure someone just very intentional. I would say she would make when that makes sense, right? I'm the oldest. I had the hardest upbringing, right? My parents were very hard on me. They never raised a child before. They don't want to mess up, right? So they're
right,
like,
right.
let's overdo things, right? Super
Sure.
strict. Don't
Yeah.
do that. You're not going there. We want to protect you. So, but then after that, once they realized I was okay, everyone, all the other brothers they're like, oh, Emmanuel's okay. We don't have to be as strict as the other ones. We kind of see that it will work out. But I think someone who tried a lot, I mean, I tried a lot academically. I took a
Hmm.
lot of pride in my grades. And someone who genuinely wanted to help their parents, I think that to this day, I'm always trying to help their parents out with whatever they need help with. They know they could call me and I could help.
Yeah. That's awesome. So it sounds like school was something you just kind of naturally gravitated toward, like that academics was something that you really it resonated with you.
Yeah, I think once again because my mom reinforced that behavior right as to perform well academically. I wanted to see my mom's reaction to me getting straight A's, Dean's List, a sticker, the National Honor Society,
Hmm.
being recognized as a top student in the school, student of the month. I mean, all these little things were always like I got to the point where I was just like, what else? What can I do that I haven't done to impress her, right? So. It just always allowed me, it kept me creative. It kept me wanting to continue to do well and be consistent.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think school was the way that my mom also sheltered us from a lot of stuff that we were living around, gang violence, education, poverty. I
Hmm.
think something that, by us doing well academically, we gave ourselves value, right? We started to see like, wow, we are someone, the teacher values us that we're setting an example when students, when we have a group project, they want to be with us because they know we're going to get it done, right? We're going
Hmm.
to perform well. Um, yeah, so I think naturally, and the older I got, once I was in high school, right, I think that's when I realized this is real life. I only have 4 years here, and college is in front of me. I know my parents never went to college. I got to figure it out. So I know that regardless, it's either you try it hard in high school and give yourself a shot at figuring it out. If I don't try, I know what that's going to lead me to, right? I'm not
Right.
going to be ready. So I just knew that I just knew I had to make that investment early on.
Absolutely. Talk about your experience in elementary and middle school. What was that like for you?
In elementary and middle school, I think same. I think I'm the same. I'm still the same person. Perform well academically. Middle school, I would say that. I think I was a little chubby. I got bullied, to be honest.
Hmm.
Um, so they weren't the best memories. I think I had a lot of I didn't like to public speak. I think maybe because of my accent or didn't like to read out loud because I didn't want to make a mistake. I didn't want people to make fun of me. So those years
Hmm.
are a little bit interesting because I think I cared too much of what people thought about me.
Hmm.
Um, and naturally so, right? I mean, these are young ages, so I mean, everyone's comparing
Absolutely.
each other, et cetera, right? What you're wearing, et cetera, everything. They're looking for differences, because they're easy to point out. Yeah, so they weren't the funnest. I mean, I could tell you that much.
Yeah. Did you develop any interests, like specific interests in academics or extracurricular interests that really fascinated that you wanted to stay involved in school?
I think I like sports. Soccer, obviously, volleyball as well. What else what I was involved with? I mean, I became a lot more involved in the high school level, I would say. Just because at the junior high, middle school, I don't think I wasn't much as involved, but some sports here and there. But I think that really played a larger role once I came into high school.
Oh wow. Did you because it sounds like you were getting in a post-secondary type of track. Were there any pre-college programs or any trio programs that you've heard about or that you wanted to join?
In my high schools, unfortunately, that I don't think they had them. I
Mm,
want to say that I don't think I had them, and I haven't looked back. I believe there might be some now, but or at least community college that partner with that high school that I could have partaken in a little bit. But at that time, I think I didn't go to the best high school, right? I went to public school, not the best high school. And perhaps if there was something, perhaps I didn't know about it at the high school level. But I definitely that definitely played over once I went into college. But just, a few things about the high school level.
mhm,
Uh, I I was super involved at the I was starting to get super involved at the high school level. I knew once again I knew that this was the time, right? I knew that I'm like this is a time, and I think I knew early on is if I'm applying a scholarship, I was starting to think very competitively,
mhm,
because I was raised around my brothers, and we were always thinking competitively and how to one up each other, right? Whether it was sports, academically, or whatever, a job, etc. And I knew that if I'm applying for a scholarship, and granted, I was a good high school student, National Honor Society. I mean, not a 4.0 GPA, but I think like a 3.4 or something like that, 3.5 up there, top 25% of their class, honors classes, stuff like that. I just knew that there needed to be stuff that make me stand out. What was my competitive advantage? What were my leverages, right? Because I know there are students who had better GPAs than me. I'm like, okay, there's many of the students who are probably applying the same scholarship, they have better GPAs, but what can I bring to the table, right? And I thought, extracurricular activities were a way that I could, right? So National Honor Society, senior club, Latino club, whatever
mhm.
might be, staying after school, STEM club, just figuring out and trying different stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, I didn't know it was gonna work. I just knew that I had to be involved with some stuff.
Absolutely. So it sounds like that you were already kind of keeping in mind of like what you needed to do to kind of be involved and engaged in academics. What other preparations did you or your family make to help your transition into high school?
I honestly could say I don't think we did anything more. I think my parents just they were busy, right? They had their own things going on. We moved a few times. They helped me as much as I possibly could. But I started working early on in my high school career too.
Oh wow.
I want to say that I think that I knew um once I got my own cell phone and I had to help pay with the cell phone bill, like I just knew that okay, I got to figure out a balance, a way to work, still
Hmm.
be involved. I don't think there's anything that they necessarily told me. I think they were always supportive, though. I would tell you that much. I think their support, them being supportive, and them still being strict a little bit. I mean, they loosened up at high school, but them still saying like, "Hey, we want to see you do well." Being involved with like the parent-teacher conferences, making sure that they would check my report cards. Like they really kept well, at least my mom did. She kept a close eye, and I think because of that, I think I always knew I had to be like I couldn't slip up. I just couldn't slip up. So. I would say them just keeping me accountable and I knowing that they would be there and there's something that they would check. I think just to continue to allow me to be on a good track.
Awesome. So we talked a little bit about some of the interests that carried over, a little bit of athletics, clubs, social clubs, and even academic clubs. Any other interests that carried over into high school for you?
Um, no, I would say interest. I just knew that before I went to high school that I needed to figure out my communicate, like how to communicate better in public,
Mm.
at least. I feel like
Hmm.
teachers knew that I tried hard. Teachers knew that I did my work. They knew I was accountable. They knew I didn't miss the school days. They knew that I was one of those students who, one of those ones who would show up and do the work and not have to worry too much about me. But I think I knew something that I carried over, well, something that I knew for myself at a personal level is that I just knew I had to get this figured out because once again, I hated reading out loud because I would either stutter or just not have confidence or just focus too much on the words and not see the entire sentence or that stuff really gave me a lot of anxiety, a lot of pressure.
Hmm.
I just knew that that was going to be something I was going to have to tackle in high school.
Yeah.
And obviously you end up doing a lot more of that in high school.
Absolutely. So, Emmanuel, for a lot of first generation students, typically going into high school, they find themselves almost a step behind when it comes to college planning because not a lot of families know that a lot of the conversations start eighth grade, maybe even a little bit earlier. But for example, some students don't think about college until junior year. I know that was the case for me. I'm a trio alum, and thinking about college, even though I got picked up late in my sophomore year, my college planning didn't start until late into my junior year. How early did you think about college, and was planning and all of that the outlining of what was going to play out? Did that factor in with your family?
Yeah, there was no pre-college preparation, I think, on my end. Because my parents never went to college, right? So how all they knew was that they knew that they couldn't help. Does that make sense? Like they knew that
Totally,
part.
totally.
And I knew that part, right? So
Mhm.
I think us both knowing that part, I think the weight naturally shifted my way, and I felt that. And I was also
Mhm.
the oldest of my brothers, so I had to set the example. I knew I wanted to go to college. I didn't know for what. I mean, I had an idea. I think at the time, at the high school level, superficial, right? We were
Oh,
talking about
totally.
doctor, a
Hmm.
nurse, lawyer, engineer, like the core ones, right? The core
Yeah.
ones that sound cool. People know they make a lot of money, and they don't realize how many years it takes to get that, right?
Hmm.
But I think there wasn't. I think I knew that I had to ask questions. I knew that I couldn't be silent. I knew my parents weren't going to be able to help me. I know there's a lot of things against me in a sense. So it was a very stressful time. I can't lie to you and say that it wasn't. I think, and that's the case for many of our high school seniors at this point in time. And once again, my high school, I don't know if they necessarily did the best to prepare me, right? I mean, they would tell me, here's some of them, right? Here's when to apply, understand fast for a little bit, but it wasn't like, is it a good fit? What's the debt ratio?
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
are you living on campus? Are you not? There's so many questions, and I more than anything, I feared the debt part. I think although none of my family members went to college, and neither have I just knew that that part really scared me. So I
Hmm.
just I think that ultimately ended up playing a role in how everything played out at the end.
Absolutely. So you were thinking about colleges. Did any colleges come to mind? Were there commercials, advertisements, or was there a particular college that you were like, you know what, I really want to attend that one? How did that happen to you? How did thinking about college materialize?
Yeah, I mean, when you're in Chicago, there's a lot of big popular ones, and I know we're in different states here, but in Chicago and Illinois, at least, there's Illinois, I should say, there's DePaul University, which is one of the larger Catholic popular ones, super expensive. UIC, University of Illinois, Chicago, Research One institution, University of Illinois Champaign, U of I, very popular, known as a college city. So there were some of them. I think at that time I was mainly looking in state because once again I thought out of state, although it sounded cool, I just knew that unfortunately getting that experience or that opportunity and um was not for me. I think I just knew that for me I just couldn't grasp graduating with debts. So I knew that
Mhm.
if I lived on campus, that would be an additional cost. And I just knew that, you know what, maybe I don't get it, maybe my other brothers do, but I knew for me that was I just threw that out the window, and maybe that helped a little bit.
Speaking of your brothers and communicating that you wanted to go to college, who else did you talk to, or who did you talk about, or who did you talk to about going to college?
High school counselors. I mean, I think I was also very fortunate to have friends who are also college bound or who were thinking about talking about colleges. Um, so we always had conversations, and to some degree, I think that even caused more stress. It's strange. High school, there's so much judgment being thrown around. People, whether your shoes you're wearing, the clothes you're wearing, what school you're gonna go to. Um, there's a lot of insecurity by students, right? I mean, I think high school is just you're thrown in, and people are just throwing insecurities. And everyone's once again trying to up one another, and then luckily, I think to my fault, I think the fact that I was with a lot of kids who took their academics seriously, I felt greater pressure because I know these folks were on top of it, and they're like, "Oh,
Mm,
I know
mm.
where I'm going. This is a scholarship that I got," and I'm like,
Oh, wow.
"Oh, that's not that kind of makes me think like I'm not doing enough." So
Mm,
that's the
mm,
deal because then more pressure and then I really didn't know, right? And I think I just made up this lie. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go here just to sometimes silence the questions because I was getting so many of them, and um and I realized that at the end of the day after I graduated high school, I'm like, no one knows what they're doing, right? I think everyone's just kind of making a decision and being like, well,
Yeah.
we're gonna figure it out. But I think if you look at retrospect, you're like, oh, that person who went there transferred out or came back or stopped going or went to a transfer to a community college, and you're like, and I was, things happen, life happens, right? So, but yeah, I would say high school counselors, my friends.
All right. Can you talk a little bit more about your high school experience as you approached your junior and senior year, and what was that like for you?
Pressure. Pressure. I think that's when it became a lot more rare, right? I think the ACT, I didn't think I scored too high. I think I maybe, tapped out at like 20. I think
Mm,
I took two times that 20 and I'm like, man, this is not the best, right?
mm,
And um and I really that was not an enjoyable experience. I would say the very anticlimactic, almost like hindering experience because I was like, I'm a good student. Why am I not scoring higher, right? And then there's other students who I thought like were scoring higher or et cetera. And I'm like, and then it was like I said, a hindering experience, almost like affirming, like, man, maybe I'm not the one to go to
oh, yeah.
college. And but I didn't let that stop me. I retook it a few times, but it just wasn't my piece of cake, man. The comprehension, the time, the pressure was not ideal factors for me to perform well. Never was really the strongest reader either, because once again, didn't go to the best, the best junior highs, middle schools. Um, Read a little bit, but wasn't don't think it was reinforced the way that I think it should be for me
Hmm.
to have in the head. And then you add that I don't like to read out loud, so there's a lot of things going against me. Um, but yeah, I would say junior senior year, I think I got a lot more serious. I started taking advantage of some other opportunities to visit schools and look at ask my high school counselor more questions. And yeah, I would say it's definitely more research heavy, right? I think without a doubt, a lot more research heavy. I knew that moment was coming, and I was just preparing myself the best possible way I could.
Wow. So as you approach your final year in high school, I think a lot of first generation students at this point, they're like, I now have a definitive list of colleges I want to apply to. Did you have a definitive list, and did you have a list of colleges that were like, this is my dream college, and here's the colleges that I know I want to get into?
I think I had one, but I think it was I don't know if I truly believed in it. I mean I did have
Mm,
one. I think
mm,
at that time it was like Grand Valley State University. Not too far, not too costly. I had gone on a trip promoted by a trio per bond program to go visit the school.
oh,
And I'm like, okay, cool. It looks like everything's working out, right? I mean,
yeah.
good athletics. I was gonna live on campus once again. I think at that time I was like, well, maybe I can if the school doesn't cost too much.
Hmm.
And I think it just sounded cool at the time to telling it to my peers. But once again, I don't know. I didn't believe it. I think that's a lie that I told myself at that time, just to believe in something
Hmm.
and to pursue something. I didn't really apply to too many other schools. I mean, maybe one or two other schools, but I would say that at that moment in time, I think that's when I was like, okay, lock in. Let's we had to pick something. That's the one. I mean, with a little bit of debt, it is what it is. I got to do it. But
Absolutely.
I ended up not getting into housing, and then I was put in this situation where they're like, well, you could be on a wait list, or you could just apply the next
Whoa.
semester. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to do neither of that. So that's when I ended up starting at community college.
Okay. Can you talk about the moment you graduated from high school? What was that moment like for you and for your family?
Cool moment. I graduated with honors. I graduated with being, part of the National Honor Society. Um, yeah, it was definitely a great moment. I think graduations are kind of the pinnacle of a journey, right? And to see my parents in the audience or meeting them afterwards and having some little sort of celebration and seeing more importantly, I think my brothers, right,
Hmm.
realizing they saw that I did it, so therefore they know that they can as well. I think more than anything, I knew that I knew the importance that it was to graduate, um, and what that meant for my parents and like I said, my brothers, my cousins, my nephews. I think to see that picture, whether I talk to them or not, right? I think them just seeing that image with the cap and gown, and then them at least, even if like I said I don't talk to them saying like, oh, like graduation, we can do that. Someone did do it before.
Yeah.
Um, it was cool.
How did you and your family prepare for your entry into college?
We didn't. I mean, once again, there was not preparation. My mom. I think my mom knew about a lady who worked at a community college, who that lady talked to my mom. My mom was sold. She was like, "I can't help you, but this lady can. So I'm gonna bug you until you reach out to her."
Hmm.
That's the lady who ended up taking me to Grand Valley State University because at Perez State College, Trio Upper Bound, I think, or some Trio program,
Hmm.
and they sponsored it. I registered on the high school side. I participated because of that, and then I kept going back to her, and ultimately, she's the reason I think I started at community college because when I was like, you know what, this is not working out. Grand Valley's telling me this. She was like, well, you could start here. You don't
Hmm.
have to wait, and you still work towards your bachelor's degree, and that's kind of how we tackled it. Me starting at a community college was my step into higher education.
Wow, that's amazing. Do you remember the moment you set foot into the campus of a community college? What went through your mind?
What went through my mind? Unfortunately, there was nothing but negative connotations around community colleges, right? So I can't say that I was
Hmm.
the most excited. Um,
Hmm.
I think that it felt different. I didn't know a lot of people, right? High school, you build relationships 4 years. You know a lot of people. You see a lot of familiar faces. College was like a fresh start, and it's like almost like a fresh start. Um, and then I think that I got over that quickly. This whole idea of like, oh, it's just another high school or this negative connotation. I
Hmm.
think it really clicked for me is when I realized that I could graduate debt free. Once again, that huge
Yeah, that's
pressure on the
important.
financial side. I knew eventually when I got my fast one, I did it, and they're like, "Oh, this is the refund you're getting." I just didn't comprehend that. I'm like, "Wait, I'm getting
You're giving
paid
me money.
to
Yeah.
go to college, and
Hmm.
my credits transfer, and I'm getting an associate's degree in 2 years."
Hmm.
It's like at that moment, that's when it really, I think, something really took it to the next level, at least internally in terms of aspiration, was like, wow, seems like a really great opportunity here. And
Hmm.
but I didn't know that in high school. I was
Yeah.
not taught. They didn't really talk about community college in high school. They didn't teach me that everything would transfer and that how it really played out and how affordable they were.
Right, right.
I didn't get that knowledge in high school. So once I learned that myself, I think that it made the process a lot more enjoyable.
Wonderful. So that first year in community college, what did you learn? What was your experience? And what did you like most about it?
What did I in my first year of college experience? I knew that I had to make this the absolute best I possibly could. Um, I just knew it. So I'm like, listen, I'm here now. It is what for whatever reason I'm here. I have to make it the absolutely best I possibly can. And once again, unlike high school where it's like, well, if you go to college, okay, that's the next level. At college, I'm like, the next level is working. And I knew what a professional looked like, sounded like, what they embodied, and I'm like, I need to work on that, right? Because whether it's wherever I work, I know what a professional looks like, sounds like once again, and I'm like,
Hmm.
I need to work towards that, and the only way I work towards that is by experiences, right? So I once
Absolutely.
again I think I made that decision to be involved at a lot of different things. I knew that I needed to meet new people because if I met new people, I could learn new things from other people. I knew, and once again, I knew that I had to tackle this giant beast of communication and speaking in front of people. I still
Hmm.
fear that. I still feared that.
Hmm.
I knew that at this level, I was gonna tackle it, and I knew that something was going to change for me at this level. Unlike the high school level, I would do some speeches, but these are all grown folks now. This is different. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's crazy. So I pushed that off a lot, but my experience was overall good. I can't say it was overall good. I was very fortunate. It wasn't far from my house. Commute was easy. And then I tried my best academically.
Wonderful. So that first year in college for a lot of first generation students comes with a lot of freedom. Did you achieve a balance that first year, or was freedom that concept kind of that was like a little bit hard to grasp? Yeah, how was that for you? Because I know I struggled with that that first year. I struggled with that freedom really, really bad.
You know, for me, it was almost like I can't say that I struggled with it. I think I really enjoyed that part. I think for me being in high school where everything was so structured, to be able to create your own structure and having like hours between stuff,
Hmm.
that's when I was like, oh, I can maximize this. Like, let me be involved with clubs that meet during that free time, or let me study, or let me do my work during that free time instead of having to do it after work, like after school, like I used to do in high school. So for me, it was liberating almost. I really, really appreciated that ability that. I mean, it did, but luckily, I can't say that's the experience for a lot of us students. Because of my academic trajectory, I was disciplined when it came to doing my homework. I took it seriously. So that transferred over. And now, if I wasn't like that, that freedom would have been a hindrance without
Hmm.
a doubt. But for me, I think that discipline carried over. So for me, it was just like, wow, this is awesome. And it played nicely because then I could work, make some money on the side.
Absolutely. Did you know what program you wanted to enter or what major you wanted to declare? You were talking about communications earlier. I wonder how that, you said you struggled with public communication and that's something that you kind of shied away from. But how did you end up in a program that's where it challenged you?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I got my associates in biological sciences because I thought I was going to be a doctor. Once
Hmm.
again, I think a lie I told myself, or a lot of first generation students tell themselves, because it sounds good, your parents know, and they make money. It's a good, respectable position, trajectory is good, but checks a lot of boxes. But that's a long time to be in school, and
Yeah.
for me, I just knew that that wasn't going to be the case. So yeah, I did come. I ended up. I was. That was my. Once I transferred to my university, That's when I changed my majors to communications, PR, public relations, and communications.
Hmm.
And I just knew that regardless, I didn't know much. I still didn't know what I wanted to be, what I wanted to do. Um, but I knew that if I could figure out how to communicate in small or big teams, then it doesn't matter. I could be whatever. I could work wherever because at the end of the day, there's very few jobs and companies that require you to work by yourself all the time. So I knew that if I made the investment in the communication, then I could learn other skill sets, right? So I just kind of made that leap, and it made sense to me. I wanted to get better at that, so the only way you get better at it is by tackling it, right? Not pushing it away like I did majority of my high school and how insecure I felt, and even at the college level, at the community college level, I still felt insecure, but I just kept. Eventually, you lose that ego. You stop being scared of what people are going to say about you, and you realize that at the end of the day, people move on with their lives. You could do poorly or say something poorly in public, and they're like, all right, no one cares anymore. And
Yeah.
for me, I was like, okay, yeah, you're right. No one cares anymore. Why am I the one carrying that for days, realizing how I messed up when no one's even thinking about that anymore?
Yeah.
Um, so it just allowed me to grow. I think I entered a good mental space after that.
What sort of support did you receive in both the community college and the college you transferred into?
Yeah, I think at the community college level, I was involved with Trio. They have like SSS, I believe at that time, Student Support Services. That was cool. I mean, I think one of the things that draw me to that center is I would also get all these emails saying like, are you first gen? Are you a student of color? We have some support services here that could help you. And I was all down for that, right? I'm like, wow, I check a lot of these boxes. I need help, right? And I think once again, I knew that I needed help, and
Hmm.
I knew that I needed to ask questions, and I knew that um, I just knew how this played out. I'm like, listen, could I have graduated without asking questions? Yes. That journey would have been a lot more difficult though, right? The moment I started asking questions, everything just became so much easier. Oh, you do it like this, or you talk to this person. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm not. And then for a long time, I think a lot of us and a lot of young professionals, students of color, they fear asking a dumb question.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah.
If you're putting themselves in a position where they're going to give power to the person and realize, oh, this person doesn't know,
Hmm.
it's okay. I mean, once again, same thing with judging is that people move on. They're not like, oh, Manny didn't know how to use this. I'm gonna think about that for 5 days. Like, no, they're like, no, he didn't
Yeah.
know how to do this. Fine, here's how
Mhm.
you do it. That's it. Like,
Uh,
I
yeah.
got what I needed and they helped me. But it's because I was clear with my ask instead of me trying to figure it out on my own and then realizing like, why is it not done?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe he doesn't want to do it, or maybe he's lazy. Like, I just knew I'm like, I have to ask questions. So that Trio program helped me a lot. I met a lot of caring folks in that Trio program who kind of uplift me. I think they knew that students of color need help. So they were very vocal, and I appreciated that. I think they had free printing. I didn't have a printer. I mean, there's a bunch of ways that I felt like I was supported that really positioned me well from a trajectory standpoint to ultimately graduate in the time frame that I did. Support, printing, extra like academic support, whether it was tutoring. I think it made a difference for me, and I wished more students view it. So I think the only downside that I think I saw that I felt was that sometimes people felt that that was for more like students who needed the help. If you get
Mm.
like,
Yeah, it
oh
has that stigma.
yeah, like oh, if you're a trio, like oh, that means you're not at the level as other college students. Like why are you in trio? And
Mm.
that's the only thing that I felt initially. But when I started getting the benefits, I'm like, oh, I don't care what you think about
Yeah,
it. Like, I'm being helped, right? And it's helping me, and I
right.
feel the difference. And then I mean, also have graduating with that red stole, huge perk, stands out. I wanted it.
That's awesome. I love that. And what other ways did you enhance your community college and your college experience?
And what other way? What? I'm sorry.
And what other ways did you enhance your community college experience and your college
Oh,
experience?
yeah, I think by being involved. I once again I realized that, in my opinion, and now I know this, but at that time I was doing it and not knowing it.
Hmm.
College higher education works best when you merge, learning in the classroom and then socializing through clubs, right? Through extracurricular activities, sports, clubs, fraternity, sororities, trio. When you merge that learning in the classroom with the socializing that comes with being involved with a lot of these other things, I think that's when you really truly get to the level of professionalism that you truly aspire to get to. Um, because I was learning a lot of practical skills outside of the classroom, right? When I was involved with clubs or a sport or anything that was, marketing, we were creating flyers, we were sometimes fundraising, we were working in teams, we were delegating, we were working on our presentation, we were trying to recruit. So there's salesmanship there. There was all these transferable skills that at that time I didn't know I was gaining, right? Now
Hmm.
looking back, I'm like, so I was just gaining transferable skills
Hmm.
um, getting to learn from other students, who they would speak. I learned how I was just learning from other students. And I think when you position yourself in an opportunity to work with other people, you learn from other people. And I think for me, that made the biggest difference. I mean, to the point that I ran for student body president. I was student body president. Here I am, first gen board of trustees, learning. Once again, because I was never there before, or no one in my family was ever there before, doesn't mean that I couldn't have success in that space, right? I think I just had a lot of aspiration, and a
Absolutely.
desire to learn, and I think desire to leave my ego at the door and ultimately try my best to bring an authentic voice, and professionals appreciated that.
Absolutely. So, in your moment in college and while you were still studying, did you have an aha moment of when what you made a realization of what type of career you wanted? And how did you arrive as communications as your major? Like that's what you needed to get to the career that you wanted.
Yeah, I don't know if I had the aha moment. I mean, to this day, I feel like now it looks easy. Now it looks easy. I'm like, oh,
Mm,
of
certainly,
course, you got a
certainly.
degree in communication because he's a director now. Of course, it's so easy in hindsight. But even my junior year, senior year in college, right at the university level, I mean, I was just doing internships. I was like, I need something to give me direction, and I was doing marketing internships. I was doing communication internships. I was, just trying to put myself in positions to learn student ambassadors, new student orientation leader. I was just like, I need to figure it out, man, and I don't have it figured out. So I don't know if there was an aha moment. I just know that once again, if I invested in communication and I could sell the idea that I know how to work and use communication as a tool effectively to work with teams that and I was more self-aware. I think the thing about communication too is that people just view it as all your ability to talk, but
Mm,
communication is it's dialogue, right? It's me to you, me seeing how something that I said, how that came off to you, me hearing your response. So I just knew that I would be a great team player, a great collaborator, right? So I just knew. I didn't know. I just knew that at some point um I was gonna figure it out, and I just knew that regardless, I had to change my major. Because if I would have continued being on this track of biology, I probably would have done it, had resentment towards my parents because I'm like, you guys forced me to this direction. I hate
mm,
it. And I'm like, at least on this direction, if I fail, if all else fails, at least it was my decision and I'm okay with that. And
excellent.
that's what I did. I betted on that and I'm like, I'm gonna have to figure it out. And I know I can figure it out.
Yeah,
I took a leap.
wonderful. Can you talk about being in the communication programs and what ways did it challenge you or prepare you for the post-college life?
What I liked about being in communication programs is that it's exactly that. I mean, there's a lot of, and not that other college programs don't, but it was very much about learning the craft, pitching an idea, trying to get buy-in,
Hmm.
having debates. What else? I would say that we obviously did a lot of speeches, a lot of group presentations. What's key here that I think I learned more, there's a lot more group presentations or individual presentations because we're communication majors. So we should be able to effectively communicate, present to an audience. What's cool about that is that I learned really quickly because that I'm like, man, these first presentations really suck, right? But the more that I did,
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, now I know what a visually attractive presentation looks like. What it should
Hmm.
have, what shouldn't it have? How make the fonts bigger or smaller? Add when to incorporate images, videos, right? I got really good at creating visually appealing presentations. And I'm like, oh yeah, and I was with my other peers. I'm like, oh no, I my work is like I knew I could stand out in that area, so it gave me confidence. So, I would say that because my degree was communications, I
Hmm.
knew that I had to be competitive and in that space once again. And there's a lot of ways that I could do that, right? My pitch, just being louder. I know people were in the program who just didn't speak loud enough.
Hmm.
Changing my pitch, having strong presentation skills, and being able to pitch something, right? At the end of the day, everyone's selling something, Juan. I think you're either selling yourself, an idea, a product, a service. You're selling something, right? When you post it, when you do these podcasts, you want people to buy in and hear and learn something, right? I think for
Definitely.
me, I just knew that I'm like people are selling all the time, and people are buying all the time. So I just knew that I had to sell myself, and I could, and I
Yeah,
knew that yeah, I loved it.
that's awesome. Talk about the moment you graduated from college. What did that moment mean for you and for your family?
Cool, that was big. I mean, once again, so this is the second time now I graduated from college, right? I graduated from a community college.
Hmm.
Cool, awesome, because then two other brothers were able to graduate from a community college. Then I did it at the university level, and to me that was really really cool. I because at that point I might have been the first in like a lot of definitely my internal one, but when I started looking like external close family members, my tias, my tios, my uncles, my tia, my aunt, um, I realized that, man, I was like one of the only ones who had a bachelor's degree from a university. So
Hmm.
it meant a lot. And I felt that. I definitely felt that. People were proud about me, people were really proud. And I think once again, what did it for me was knowing that like my younger brothers could see that it is possible, it's doable. I did it. I graduated debt free, so can they. I think that was being able to plant that seed in their heads, I think for me was the biggest takeaway.
That's awesome. Being a first generation college student, a first generation college graduate, sorry, holds a lot of honor and pressure. How did you handle all of this? And yeah, how did you deal with it while in college and post college?
So I could tell you how I handled it while in college. I knew what it meant to be a first generation student because I knew that I didn't have a network.
Hmm.
I knew that, when I knew the importance of, once again, that idea of it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I really quickly understood that. And like, if I was an employer and I had to pick two people and I knew at least something about someone, that I would be leaning more towards that because I at least know something, right? That doesn't mean it's gonna work out, but at least there's something for me to lean that direction. So
Hmm.
when I knew that, I'm like, I need more people to know about me and the work that I'm doing. So I just knew that the importance of building your network as you're a first generation student. So luckily I was super involved, right? I think that's when it all kind of connects. I know I don't have a network, but here I am being involved and I'm building my network while I'm pursuing a degree. So
Hmm.
I'm doing a lot of different things. And to be honest, well, Juan, it's a lot of it's heavy lifting.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
not sitting here saying it's easy.
Hmm.
It's not easy. Being first generation and going to college, that's hard enough already. Now going to college, working full time and building your network and kind of having and seeing the fact that you have to build your network almost as a part-time job where you're
Hmm.
building your brand, where you got to dedicate hours to doing that because if you don't do it, no one's going to do it. I think for me, it's not easy, but I think it's a work that if you want that you want to be really successful in the field that you're going into, or at least position yourself for promotions, that's work you have to do because that's the work that's going to be able to make you stand out is having a network. And once again, just people knowing who that the work that you're doing. Juan, I did not. We're states away. We're states away. The fact that I follow someone who knows of your work that came on my feed, we're connected, and now we're here doing this
Hmm.
podcast,
Wow.
right? So it goes to show you the power of just knowing someone and tapping in, and now they know you. Now they know so other people. Now they can make that connection for you.
Wow.
So I think, man, it's huge, and I do a lot of workshops regarding that because I'm like, I need people to wake up to realize, yeah, your part-time job now for the next 20 years is to be the brand ambassador to yourself.
Wow.
Because if you're waiting for your employer to promote you or affirm you or elevate you or your company, man, you're gonna be waiting a long time. And
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
can't. You got to be the one putting yourself on. So you got to be, like I said, for those listening, your part-time job now, and no one, and it is work, but your part-time job is to be the best brand ambassador to yourself, which means building that network.
That is amazing. Like that, the weight of what you just said kind of just struck me at the moment, and I didn't realize like, yeah, you are on a part-time basis, really always being your own brand ambassador. I didn't think about it like that. That's a good um framing. That's awesome.
And it's
Um,
hard, right? It's hard
yeah.
because you gotta be consistent. And like the same way that you post and you're constantly interviewing people, you're building your brand and more people are knowing about that, right? But it's through the consistency of constantly doing that. You're building, getting more followers, more people know about you. People who are out of state like me know about you consistency with, once again, viewing that as your part-time job and that intentionality of, okay, I don't have a LinkedIn. I got to dedicate hours to doing that. Now I have a LinkedIn.
Mhm.
How do I elevate that? That's more hours.
Right.
Going to
Wow.
networking events. That's time and work. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but what I'm saying is it's worth it.
Absolutely. So, Emmanuel, for the time that you were doing your undergrads and then graduating, did you immediately jump into a master's? Is that something that was like for you was like I got to immediately jump into a master's to continue learning about you jumped into higher education leadership. Is that something that was instant for you, or did you were you like feeling out higher education? Yeah, how did that work out for you?
Yeah, I just knew that a lot of my mentors who helped me throughout my community college and undergraduate level were in higher education, were in student affairs. And I'm like, man, that's really cool, man. I would love to be someone like them. They really changed my life. Um, and I think it really kept me on track to being the person that I am here today, both on the professional level, academic level, spiritual level. So for me, I just kind of knew that. And when I graduated with my degree, debt free, I'm like, okay, I could enter the workforce. I could.
Hmm.
But I knew that if I did that, then I would probably be too busy to or push getting a master's degree away. And I just had that momentum. I'm like 2 years community college, 2 years in university. I'm like, what's 2 more years, right? Let me
Yeah.
get this degree. I think and at that time, and this wasn't nothing new. I was already working full time. So I'm like, it's not like I'm not working full time. I just knew that
Right.
it was gonna be a different challenge. But that was a challenge that I wanted to take on, and I'm glad that I did because the fact that I was able to get that, although I sacrificed years potentially making an income, I sacrificed those years, right? Because I was a student again. I think ultimately it allowed me to make leaps forward once I did get that master's degree and position me to the role that I'm here today.
Wow. Amazing. So you were already doing a lot of the prep work to get ready to what you're doing now, which is amazing. And you went for a master's at a different college. For a lot of students that are listening to the podcast, either undergrad or either graduate, they're- traditionally they stick to the same university. When you found out that you needed to go to a different college, what was your thought process? Were you okay with jumping to a different college?
I mean, yeah, at that time, remember, I was high school, a different school at a community college, and then a different school at the university level. So I'm like,
Hmm.
I've done this a few times, right? So I mean, at
Right,
this point,
right.
I'm saying nothing different. Once again, the key here was, can I graduate it with a master's degree, potentially debt free? I did it at
Hmm.
the college level, did it at the university level. Can I do it again? And I think it was through those experiences, my ability to do that that gave me the confidence to be like, you know what, I can. I just gotta make it. Gotta do my research. Gotta
Hmm.
ask a few folks, gotta interview, a few folks, gotta ask the right questions, show enough curiosity. And I think I can at least graduate with minimal debt. And that
Hmm.
was the case. So I think, yeah, I jumped straight into it.
Wow. So you were also serving as a grad assistant. How does one balance grad school and working? Because a grad student can say, "Man, I feel overwhelmed." It's like grad school is a whole other thing. So how did you achieve a balance?
There wasn't one. I mean, once again, I think I always push back with this idea that oh, I was able to do this because I found that balance, right?
Hmm.
Nothing's ever going to be balanced. I think that's mental health is extremely important. I'll say that, right? And for me though, I just I knew where I wanted to be, so I knew the sacrifices that I needed to make, and I knew that that was going to be that balance that a lot of people strive for, right? That work-life balance. I didn't, man. I went to grad school full time. I had a grad assistantship. I worked as a car salesman a few years. Um, and then on top of that, building my personal brand. On top of that, managing my family expectations. Um, Man, it wasn't easy. I mean, it was not easy. At one point, I was commuting. At one point, this was my commute, Juan, just so people could understand.
Absolutely. Yeah, go
I
for
would
it.
drive. I would drive 10 minutes. I wake up, drive 10 minutes to a train, take a train, 45 minutes up to the city, walk 5 minutes to another train, take that train 40 minutes again, get off that train, walk 10 minutes to Northwestern University because my grad assistantship was at Northwestern University.
Hmm.
I did that like three times a week. Um, that is not fun. But once again, I knew that was worth it. I knew that I was getting the experience that I wanted. I really wanted that grad assistantship. I got it at an elite prestigious university.
Yeah.
And it was worth it for me, man. If I could do it again, I would do it again. But work-life balance was not there. But I knew it once again. These were the times where I could sacrifice that. These were the times where I'm willing to not have that balance because I was investing so much in me learning and being in position to gain experiences that I knew that eventually when I slowed down a little bit, I think I would be proud of the work that I had up to that point. And that's where I'm at now. Where I'm like, I don't want to serve anymore on this board, or you know what, I'm gonna take a step back now. But
Yeah.
I thought that work for many years, right? So it's an interesting point in life now.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna skip a little bit on the timeline because you served in a variety of roles. We'll get to them, but I want to skip ahead a little bit because you now serve as the director for the Latinx Resource Center at Governor State University. Can you talk a little bit about the work that you do there?
Yes, I can. So this is a new center. So I'm the inaugural director for this resource center. And yeah, so it's a physical space on campus in which Latinx students could come, ask me questions. I could create programming. I could oversee like the student club organization on campus. I could, I'm looking to bring some fraternity and sorority to campus. And truly the work that I'm doing, if I could summarize it, because it's what does the director do, right?
Hmm.
I am the visible person who is here to promote the center, to recruit students to participate in the center, to collaborate with other departments. My job as a director is to create an ecosystem when it comes to an ecosystem to better support our Latinx students. So what does that look like? Through my office, we have a Latinx employee research group for our staff and faculty. We also have we were in the process of building out a Latinx Alumni Association. We have a Latinx club on campus. I work for the Seal of Excelencia to with some data stuff
Wow.
for the university. And then we're trying to build a Latinx advisory council. Once again, so my role, I'm the middle, but I'm
Hmm.
building this ecosystem to better support Latinx students because I'm one person. I can't change anything, right? I mean, I could change a lot of things, but it's going to take a long time for me to change to make the changes that I would like to see or that the university expects of me. But if I create the ecosystem, now there's a lot of things in motion that ultimately the goal is to better serve our growing Hispanic Latinx student population. And I think that we're taking the right steps, and it's a lot of learning. But I have a lot of ideas, so if things are not working, I will evolve to them. The needs of students evolve, and I will evolve with them.
Can you talk a little bit about your previous work experience that got you ready for this position, or you felt like it was time for this position?
Yeah, I was already serving as a co-advisor for that Latinx club on campus. I previously was involved with all Latinx clubs at all institutions that I've ever been a part of. At community college, it was they had a Latino club there. I was super involved, helped launch that. I think at that time that might have been like the first, second year. When I went to my university, I helped launch a Latino club on campus. When I went to GSU, that was during pandemic. We helped soft relaunch it. They exist before. I did not create it, but I helped rebrand it a little bit and bring some
Hmm.
life to it. So I was already doing this type of work. I was just supporting Latinx students and creating a space where they felt welcomed and they increased their sense of belonging and they just wanted to socialize. And when it was the next event, and they just felt seen. And then when you add the fact that I was also already assistant director at that time, granted not for many months, the leap for me to make that ambitious uh, the leap was there, right? Granted, it was a very ambitious leap that I made, but once again, ultimately, I showed that I cared a lot, that I had the ideas, that I had the visibility, that I had the ability to connect and work collaboratively. Um, and I had proven that they already had seen that track record, so I think that helped out. But I
That's
mean, a lot of
amazing.
people believed in me. At the end of the day, they had to they had to pick someone, and they picked me, and they believed in my potential. So I will always be grateful for that.
So, in addition to the work that you're currently doing, you also serve in other capacities, as you were saying earlier, with nonprofits. Can you talk about these initiatives and what they mean to you?
Yes, I mean, there's so many of them. Like when HACU, right, the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities, which is the United States leader or the U.S. leader when it comes to the work that HSIs do, emerging HSIs do. They work closely in D.C. to make sure that the Department of Education is giving enough money. They're constantly advocating. When they came to Chicago last year for their annual conference, they asked to see who wanted to be a part of their advisory council.
Hmm.
And I just said, yeah. I mean, they sent an email, I responded, and it was more work. Once again, my committee, we ended up doing an Illinois convening during the conference, which we gathered like 100 professionals and had a programming. But once again, it's taking that lead, saying yes to opportunities, learning. Another example is through the Hispanic Alliance for Career Enhancement, ASE.
Hmm.
It's a national nonprofit. They work on, once again, positioning Latinx talent to meet corporate needs, whereas employment or getting into executive suites, really helping them level up. And the last 2 years, we have an annual fundraiser where we get corporate sponsors. One year we fundraised like $20,000. Last year we fundraised $10,000.
Wow.
Um, and once again, this is outside of my job. So, I'm learning how to create a corporate sponsorship packet. I'm learning how to really reach out to the community and fundraise money outside of my work. I'm helping as the vice chair lead a group of people who are not all in higher education to fundraise money for students in higher education. So there's a lot that I do there that once again, it's constantly learning, right? The more that I learn, the more that I could give my students. The more that I learn, the more that I stay competitive. The more that I learn, the more that I could be promotable.
Hmm.
The more that I learn, the more visible I get. So it's just it's all connected. It's all
Okay.
connected.
Wow.
It's been
That's
great.
amazing. So all of this, you're doing work with nonprofit organizations, you have a full-time job. All of this must feel like you had a leap from college time management to life management now, no?
It is. Yeah, it is. And I'm still learning. I'm not sitting here saying I got it all figured out. I mean, there's times where I do feel a lot more tired. There's a lot where I'm like, maybe I didn't have the right energy or, man, I didn't feel like doing something, right? I think it happens, but you learn to show up. I mean, half the battle sometimes is showing up,
That's
right?
true.
Not giving up and just being like, you know what? I don't feel the best, but I'm gonna do it anyway, right? And then people see that, and at the end of the day, people, people like people who execute, right? Who are showing up consistently, who are doing the work, who are not complaining, who show that consistency, right? That's how you build a personal brand is when I'm like, oh yeah, this person did great work. And then, they see 5 posts of doing that same work and they're like, oh wait, that person does really great work and they're always getting asked to do that work. And, now I know more about the work that they're doing because they always post about it. And now maybe I can make that connection. Like there's so many ways that visibility could help you, that personal brand. But yeah, without a doubt, I'm still learning though. It's not easy.
Emmanuel, what do you see yourself? You living in the moment, absolutely, but what do you see yourself doing maybe 5, 10 years from now?
Wow, I knew that, and to be honest, I think this is where I think you have to believe in yourself. At the end of the day, I believed in myself when I applied for that director position. I had the audacity, right, at that time. I just got promoted, and here I am looking for another promotion. How dare you, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
I believed in myself. I
That's
I I
important.
I aspire to be great. I aspire to be a director. I aspire to do something I've never done before. I aspire to compete for something that was going to be very difficult to get. I still did it, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you're listening to this podcast, do it. Just as as the Nike logo says, just do it. But like truly, 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 truly believe in yourself and believe that you have the capabilities to do something amazing, right? And I think I've always had that, and that has been instilled because of my great parents. But in the next 5, 10 years, now as a director, I mean, now things get really, really fun because now there's dean positions or assistant vice presidents. I think in the next 5, 10 years, without a doubt, I probably end up getting completing the gauntlet of education. I have associates. I mean, I have a high school diploma. I have a community college degree. I have a university degree. I have a master's degree. I have an honorary degree as well from a community college. The
Wow.
only degree I
Congrats.
don't have, yeah, thank you. The only degree I don't have is that doctoral one, right? So that's the only one in the horizon that I'm going to get because I know once again, I make that investment for 4 or 5 years. It's going to be extra work, not going to be fun. Balance probably not going to be there, but
Hmm.
that's going to position me to make even a large generational leap and become, once again, a vice president or even who knows, maybe a president, right? Especially
Definitely.
there seems to be more need for this for Latinx representation at that level because there's not too many Latinx presidents at community colleges or universities.
Very true.
The need is there. But ideally, what would be really cool is someone who work with Haku now. Why not? Why not? I want to aspire to work in the Department of Education under the
Oh
HSI,
yeah, that would be yeah.
under the HSI department, I want to work with those folks who give the money to community colleges and universities for them to do the work, right?
Right.
Why not get for that level, right? I think on the trajectory that I am on it, if I continue to be on it,
Hmm.
maybe there's an opportunity, and luckily I'm 29, right? I have 20, 25 more years in this game. So I think if I play my cards right, I think within 15, 20 years, I think I could be at that level where I'm like a name and I could be applying for these, Department of Educations at the federal level to be helping Latinx students in policy and grants and advocating and implementing and consulting. I think there's a lot of different ways, and I'm excited because I know where my heart is at. I know that I like to collaborate. I know that I want to make the greatest impact I possibly can because I want to continue to make my parents proud as immigrant parents who came over here who didn't get a college degree, for me to reach that level, I think would be the highest nod to them. We're saying thank you for parenting me in the way that you did. Thank you for raising me in the way that you did. Thank you for making that leap to coming to the United States. I'm paying it forward, and I'm representing, the state that my parents came from, Mexico.
That's wonderful and amazing to hear. Emmanuel, if you had all trio professionals in one room, what would you say to them?
Wow, if I had all trio, oh my goodness. So here's what I would say to them. Honestly, this is a question I've never been asked this before. Wow, this is so, but the answer is really clear. As much as I just scrambled in my mind, this is what I would say. Right now, we are coming we're coming out of a pandemic, right? We're only a few years separated from a pandemic that never happened in the history of higher education.
Mm-hmm.
The student debt continues to rise.
Yeah.
Right? So the excitement for students to go to college is not at an all-time high. So what I would tell them is that we need to be catalysts of hope. We have to inspire and empower the next generation of first generation students of color, TRIO students, to continue to be spark them, like motivate them to go to college, tell them that you can do it, because right now it's an extremely difficult time. And a lot of the social skills were hindered because of the time in the pandemic as well. There's more pressures. A lot of family members die. Really traumatic stuff happens. So right now, more than anything, we need our TRIO folks to be like, wow, I really appreciate you coming in. Wow, you're doing great. Wow, I appreciate you showing that consistency. Wow, you got great grades. That's awesome. Really uplifting. Right now, we need that a lot in the field.
That's wonderful. That's some great advice too. What would you say to TRIO students at all levels of their educational journey, whether they're pre-college, in college, or maybe they've been out of college or they've graduated and they're thinking maybe it's time to go back to college, or maybe it's time for me to go to college?
Yeah, I would say ask questions earlier on. As soon as you struggle with something, especially when you're first gen, you got to navigate the college space. You're not, there's no way you're going to learn it. You're going to know everything. You're not. So the earlier you ask questions, the easier it becomes. So that would be my advice, is that let the ego at the door. Do you want to be helped? If the answer is yes, you got to ask those questions. And once again, you could still, there's pride and self-resilience, right? I think growing up, I had a lot of pride and self-resilience because I could figure it out on my own. In high school, my parents couldn't help me. I'll figure it out. And I built this pride. I'm saying like, I don't need help. I could figure it out. I've done it up to this point. College is a different beast. College is a different beast. That's going to end up hindering you. So you have to let that go, ask questions, and it's going to become a lot easier for you.
Good advice. Are there any folks you would like to recognize on this podcast?
Yeah, I mean, my first, one of my first mentors, Jenica Rodriguez. That's the TRIO professional who got me into Grand Valley State University, who worked at a community college, who helped me get started there. Jason Thomas, who was the director of the TRIO program at that time there. Sean Smith, James Wallace, a bunch of people. There's so many people. Tanya Cabrera, Paul McGinnis, Lisa Schneider, so many people, right? They all get shout out. I don't have enough time to read all their titles, but a lot of them are very long. But just know that I think about them a lot, because without them, I'm not here.
In one word, describe yourself.
In one word, ambitious.
Ambitious. I love that. That'll be the title of this podcast episode.
Yeah, I think so. I think you have to be. I mean, when you're first generation, I think you have to be. And I'm continuing to be ambitious. I'm not stopping. I think I want to do right for my brothers, my family. I have a whole country, right, that I come from. I'm Mexican American. Every time I go to Mexico, they're like, "Wow, I'm so proud of you. You made it out. You're over there in the United States." And I feel that, and I want to do right by them. I want to, so there's a lot of pressure that comes with it, but I think that drives, in my case, my ambition.
Absolutely. So I'm going to ask this next question, knowing that you have very limited time. Are you squeezing any reading? Are you watching anything or listening to anything at the moment?
I need to be doing more of that. So here's one of the areas that I sacrifice. So I talked about, like, you sacrifice work-life balance. I don't watch TV, man. I watch some sports, but I haven't watched Game of Thrones. I don't watch shows. Like, I just don't.
Yeah.
And honestly, I wish I read more. I wish I read more, because once again, if you're introverted and you want to learn from other people, guess what? There's books were invented, right? You don't have to talk to anyone. You talk to yourself. You read it. That author, each book is almost like a joke. They're trying to tell you something. Once you get the joke, once you get what they're trying to tell you, then you can move on, right? But each thing is trying to tell you something. There's a catch. They're all trying to tell you one of few things, right? And I think I wish I read more. I want to get back on listening to more podcasts. I think they're really, really good. Once again, you're learning language, how things are saying. I really like the way he said that. That's going to stick with me. I'm going to use that in my next time I speak. Or, oh, that was a really great framework. Oh, that was a really great, etc. Right? I think those are all great. And remember, education could come in different forms, right? And these are all ways that education can come into, all forms that education could be in. So take advantage of them, especially in the world that we live in now. I mean, if you want to learn how to get a better LinkedIn, watch 6 TikTok videos. They're 6 seconds each. The amount of how you could learn in this society. You have YouTube long format, TikTok short format. There's no excuses. You could learn anything now.
True. Very, very true. Emmanuel, it has been a pleasure to have you on this podcast and a huge honor to interview you. It's been a long time goal for me to be able to interview someone as prestigious, someone that has held titles and is such an influence in the community. Again, it's such an honor to interview you. So I hope to have you on again soon. And sometime in the near future.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm here. And this is just the beginning. And I want to continue to help your work that you're doing. You're doing great work. And I'm not gonna be a stranger. I'm not gonna big up sometime next time you hit me up like, no, I done it. No, man, I believe in that, and my personal brand is something that's been consistent, being a genuine person. So next time you hit me out, just know that I'll say yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So, Emmanuel, we have a tradition on the Let's Talk Trio podcast where we have the guests sign off. Do you care to do the honors?
Yeah, sure. Hi, this is Emmanuel Lopez. I'm the director of the Latinx Resource Center, Governor State University. I graduated with my bachelor's in communication from Indiana University. I then obtained my master's degree in higher education leadership from Northeast Illinois University. Trio works, man. It has worked. It will work. It will continue to work. So take advantage of it.
That was our guest, Emmanuel Lopez, the director of the Latinx Resource Center at Governor State University. Emmanuel, thank you so much for being on the podcast and for sharing your Trio journey. Remember, if you would like to be on the Let's Talk Trio podcast or know a staff, advocate, participant, or alumni, send us an email at letstalktrio@gmail.com. That email again is letstalktrio@gmail.com. A huge thanks to our sponsors, Angelica Villalpando, Dr. Jamie Motley, Dr. Ryan Barone, Dr. Jeff Naputi, Angelica Valdez, Rosario Riley, Felicia Rivera, TrioJoblist.com, Jaded Electronics, NOSOTROS Education Center, and Student Access. Thank you all so much for your continued support of this podcast. You too can be a sponsor of the Let's Talk Trio podcast in one of 3 ways. Become a monthly patron on Patreon. Our base level starts at $1 a month. Become a corporate sponsor by placing an ad on the podcast. Email us for details. Become a supporter with a one-time donation to the podcast PayPal account. Our business handle is @Let'sTalkTrio. I'd like to take a moment to thank our honorary members of the Let's Talk Trio podcast, Roderick Chambers, Tony Ho, Scott Kendall, and Susan Cramp. The Let's Talk Trio podcast team is John Russell, audio engineer, music producer and composer, and post-production editor. Amelia Castañeda, script supervisor, marketing manager, social media manager, and producer. Juan Rivas, executive producer and host. This podcast was recorded Monday, February 12th, 2024. We are in an election year. I strongly urge our listeners to exercise their right to vote. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode.